Welcome to Games from Folktales, a podcast that mixes historical research and tabletop role-playing settings. I'm your host, Timothy Ferguson. This week, a Magonomia episode. It pairs with the Magonomia episode for last month. It's about alchemists in Chaucer, and in this case, it includes the story of a con man. I've cut a lot of the start of the story out. So, as a basic setup, there is a priest and a canon. The canon is a skilled con artist. The two men have met. They've had a drink together. The canon has engaged his mark in conversation, and they have travelled to the priest's home. Thanks again to Joshua Young and their production team through LibriVox, who released the recording we're using into the public domain.
"Sir," quoth he to the priest, "let your man gone for quicksilver, that we it had anon, and let him bring ounces 2 or 3, and when he comes, as fast shall ye see a wondrous thing which ye saw ne'er ere this." "Sir," quoth the priest, "it shall be done y was." He bade his servant fetch him this thing, and he all ready was at his bidding, and went him forth, and came anon again, with this quicksilver shortly for to sayn, and took these ounces 3 to the canon, and he laid them well and fair down, and bade the servant coals for to bring, that he anon might go to his working. The coals right anon weren y fit, and this canon he took a crosslet out of his bosom, and showed it to the priest.
As a reminder from last week, a crosslet is what we would now call a crucible.
"This instrument," quoth he, "which that thou seest, take in thine hand, and put thyself therein, of this quicksilver an ounce, and here begin, in the name of Christ, to wax a philosopher. There be full few, which that I would proffer, to show them thus such of my science. For here shall ye see by experience, that this quicksilver I will mortify, right in your sight, anon without lie, and make it as good silver and as fine, as there is any in your purse, or mine, or elsewhere, and make it malleable, and else hold me false and unable among folk forever to appear."
Mortifying quicksilver is adding acid to it. Oddly, the usual product of adding nitric acid to quicksilver is mercury fulminate, which is an explosive.
"I have a powder here that cost me dear, shall make all good, for it is cause of all my cunning, which that I you shew shall. Void your man, and let him be thereout, and shut the door, while we be about our privity, that no man us espy, while that we work in this philosophy." All, as he bade, fulfilled was indeed. This eke servant right anon outyede, and his mastery shut the door anon, and to their labour speedily they gone. This priest, at this cursed canon's bidding, upon the fire anon he set this thing, and blew the fire, and busied him full fast, and this canon unto the crosslet cast, a powder, I know not whereof it was, he made either of chalk, either of glass, or somewhat else, was not worth a fly, to blend with this priest, and bade him high the coals for to couch and all above the crosslet. "For in token I thee love," quoth this canon, "thine own hands too shall work all thing that there shall be do."
This is a basic principle of close magic for con artistry. The mark picks the card or chooses which cup the ball's under. The trick has already happened by the time they're allowed to touch the materials, so it only adds to the verisimilitude.
"Grand mercy," quoth the priest, and was full glad, and couched the coals as the canon bade. And while he busy was, this fiendly wretch, this false canon, thou foul fiend him fetch, out of his bosom took a breachen coal, in which full subtifly was made a hole, and therein put was of silver limale an ounce, and stopped was without fail. The hole was wax, to keep the limale in, and understand that this false gin was not made there, but it was made before. And other things I shall tell you more hereafterward, which that he with him be brought."
Joshua has a little bit of trouble with one of the dialectical words there, so let's work through that. The canon makes the priest seat the coals above the crucible, and while he was busy doing this, out of the chest of his clothing, he took a coal of beechwood in which, with full subtlety, he had made a hole and put inside silver shavings, limale is shavings, which weighed an ounce, and then he stoppered up the hole with wax to keep the shavings in. When Chaucer refers to this as a false gin, here he means a device like a cotton gin and not the drink gin. I'm now going to cut a chunk out where the yeoman complains about the canon's lack of character because it contains nothing of use to us.
But take heed, sirs, now for God's love. He took his coal, of which I spake above, and in his hand he bare it privily. And while the priest couched busily the coals, as I told you ere this canon said, "Friend, ye do amiss. This is not coached as it ought to be, but soon I shall amend in it," quoth he. "Now let me meddle therewith but a while, for of you have I pity, by Saint Gil. Ye be right hot, I see well how ye sweat. Have here a cloth, and wipe away the wet."
Unless St. Guile there is a pun, that would be St. Gile, from St. Giles. And that, of course, is the misdirection. He gets his victim to look away from the trick.
And while that the priest wiped his face, this canon took his coal, with sorry grace, and laid it above on the midward of the crosslet, and blew well afterward, till that the coals began fast to brin. "Now give us drink," quoth this canon then, "and swith all shall be well, I undertake. Sit we down, and let us merry make." And when that this canon's breechen coal was burnt, all the mail out of the hole into the crosslet anon fell down. And so it must needs by reason, since it above so even couched was. But thereof wist the priest no thing. Alas! He deemed all the coals alike good, for of the sleight he nothing understood. And when this alchemister saw his time, "Rise up, Sir Priest," quoth he, "and stand by me, and for I wot well ingot have ye none. Go, walk forth, and bring me a chalk stone, for I will make it of the same shape that is in ingot, if I may have hap. Bring eke with you a bowl, or else a pan, full of water, and ye shall well see then how that our business shall happen prive. And yet, for ye shall have no misbelieve, nor wrong conceit of me in your absence, I will not be out of your presence, but go with you, and come with you again."
So the ingot here is the mould, not the bar of metal that you draw out of the mould. Note the trick being done. The magician can say, "To prove I'm not doing anything untoward, I'll be with you the whole time." Soon he's going to lock the whole trick in a house and let the mark hold the key.
The chamber door shortly for to say, and they opened and shut, and went their way, and forthwith them they carried the key, and came again without any delay. "Why should I tarry all the long day? He took the chalk, and shaped it in the wise of an ingot, as I shall you devise. I say he took out of his own sleeve a tein of silver. Evil may he chieve."
Here we see a fault in the magician's form. The trick's done. There's silver in the quicksilver. There's no need to do any of this secondary business. A tein, by the way, is a small piece. Chieve means an outcome, so evil may he chieve means may he have an evil outcome. The word achievement has the same root.
"Which that he was but just an ounce of weight. And take heed now of his cursed sleight. He shaped his ingot in length and in brid of this tein without any dread, slow slyly that the priest it not espied, and in his sleeve again he gan it hide."
So he pops an ingot, what we'd call an ingot, out of his sleeve, uses it to shape the mould, and then he drops it back into his sleeve. He doesn't need to do any of that, and the manipulation to carve out a chalkstone to make the mould isn't worth it for the trick. He could just as well give the man a lump of silver from the pot, or melt it into an ingot before him. In the next few lines, remember that when he puts the matter into the ingot, the matter is the melted material, and the ingot is the mould, not the piece of silver in his sleeve, which Chaucer always calls a tein. That being said, the water bath in which the chalk is cooled is discoloured by the process, so the man needs to grope in it for the silver, and if the magician wanted to, he could just drop silver from his sleeve into the water vessel, as he will later do. He does the trick 3 ways, a different way each time.
"And from the fire he took up his matter, and in the ingot put it with merry cheer, and in the water vessel he it cast, when that him list, and bade the priest as fast, 'Look what there is. Put in thine hand and grope. There shalt thou find silver, as I hope. What? Devil of hell, should it else be? Shaving of silver, silver is, pardie. He put his hand in, and took up a tein of silver fine, and glad in every vein was this priest, when he saw that it was so. God's blessing, and his mother's also. "And all hallows have ye, Sir Canon," said this priest, "and I their malison. But an ye vouchsafe to teach me this noble craft and this subtlety, I will be yours in all that ever I may."
All Hallows here means by the saints. Halloween is called All Hallows Eve because it's the night before the feast of the saints who don't have their individual days in the church's calendar. A malison is a spoken curse. It is literally the same as a slightly later word, which we've used in Ars Magica, malediction.
Quoth the canon, "Yet will I make assay this second time, that ye may take heed, and be expert of this, and in your need another day assay in mine absence this discipline, and this crafty science. Let take another ounce," quoth he though, "of quicksilver, without words mo', and do therewith as ye have done ere this, with that other, which that now silver is." The priest him busied, all that e'en he can, to do as this canon, this cursed man, commanded him, and fast he blew the fire, for to come to the effect of his desire. And this canon, right in the meanwhile, all ready was this priest eft to beguile, and for a countenance in his hand bare All Hallows stick, take keep and beware. Of silver limale put was, as before, was in his coal, and stopped with wax well, for to keep in his limale every deal. And while this priest was in his business, this canon with his stick gan him dress, to him anon, and his powder cast in, as he did erst. The devil out of his skin him turn, I pray to God, for his false head, for he was ever false in thought and deed. And with his stick, above the crosslet, that was ordained with that false get, he stirred the coals, till rinned gan the wax against the fire, as every man, but he a fool be, knows well it must need, and all that in the stick was out yede, and in the crosslet hastily it fell. Now, good sirs, what will ye bet then well? When that this priest was thus beguiled again, supposing not but truth, sooth to sayn, he was so glad, that I can not express in no manner his mirth and his gladness, and to the canon he proffered eftsoon body and good.
To us, the reading audience, he looks like he's doing the same trick twice, but not to the audience in the story. Remember that for the canon, the first coal that hid the silver was, as far as he knew, his own coal. In this case, the priest is saying, I'm using this perfectly normal stick. But if the canon were to trace his memory afterwards, the assumption that the technique was the same on both attempts would hide the stick's participation. I am using this perfectly normal stick is subverted in modern magic because the wand is assumed to be part of the trick. Actually, it's often misdirection. It is a perfectly normal stick. This is the version of this con that I first heard of. It differed slightly, however. The equipment here has coals above and metal melting out below. The version I'd seen was for gold in a more conventional cauldron. It involved the magician stirring his material with an iron spoon that had a hollow stem, again filled with gold, and stoppered with wax that melted out. This is perhaps a better method, as the canon here needs to make sure that the priest is not looking when his vessel disintegrates and drains. In the cauldron and spoon method, the matter in the cauldron being opaque, that part of the trick is hidden from the audience.
"Yea," quoth the canon soon, "though poor I be, crafty thou shalt me find. I warn thee well, yet is there more behind. Is any copper here within?" said he. "Yea, sir," the priest said, "I trow there be. Else go buy us some, and that has swithe. Now, good sir, go forth thy way and hie thee." He went his way, and with the copper came, and this canon it in his hands name, and of that copper weighed out an ounce, too simple is my tongue to pronounce. As minister of my wit, the doubleness of this canon, root of all cursedness, he friendly seemed to them that knew him not, but he was fiendly both in work and thought. It wearieth me to tell of his falseness, and nathless yet will I it express. To that intent men may beware thereby, and for none other cause truly, he put this copper in the crosslet, and on the fire as swithe he hath it set, and casted powder, and made the priest to blow, and in his working for to stoop low, as he did erst, and all was but a jap. Right as him list the priest he made his ape, and afterward in the ingot as he cast, and in the pan he put it at the last of water, and in he put his own hand, and in his sleeve, as he beforehand heard him tell, he had a silver tein. He silly took it out, this cursed heen, unweeting this priest of his false craft, and in the pan's bottom he it laughed, and in the water rumbleth to and fro, and wondrous privily took up also the copper tein, not knowing thilke priest, and hid it, and him hint by the breast, and to him spake, and thus said in his game, "Stoop now adown, by God, ye beat to blame. Help me now, as I did you will. Put in your hand, and look what is there."
So the priest seems determined to do the trick 3 times in different ways. There is a bit of an art to this in that it makes it harder to work out how the trick was done afterwards, because the mark tends to assume that the same method was used in each iteration. It does, however, feel as if he's over-egging the pudding.
This priest took up this silver tein anon, and then said the canon, "Let us gon with these 3 teens which that we have wrought to some goldsmith, and weet if they be aught. For by my faith I would not for my hood, but if they were silver fine and good, and that as swith well proved shall it be." Unto the goldsmith with these teens 3 they went anon, and put them in assay. To fire and hammer might no man say nay, but that they weren as ought to be.
To assay is to try, to put to test. It's used in 2 distinct ways in this poem. Here they're trying the silver, before the canon says he will assay his art again. That is, he's going to try to make silver again.
This sotted priest, who gladder was than he? Was never bird gladder against the day, nor nightingale in the season of May? Was never none that better list to sing, nor lady lustier in carolling, or for to speak of love and womanhead, nor knight in arms to do a hardy deed, to stand in grace of his lady dear, than had this priest his craft for to lear. And to the canon thus he spake and said, "For love of God, that for us all died, and as I may deserve it unto you, what shall this receipt cost? Tell me now." "By Our Lady," quoth this canon, "it is dear. I warn you well, that save I and Frere, in England there can no man it make." "No forth?" quoth he. "Now, sir, for God's sake, what shall I pay? Tell me, I you pray." "Ye wise," quoth he, "it is full dear, I say. Sir, at one word, if that you list it have, ye shall pay 40 pounds, so God me save, and near the friendship that ye did there thus. To me ye should pay more ye was." This priest the sum of 40 pound anon of nobles fet, and took them every one to this canon for this ilk receipt. And all his working was but fraud and deceit.
A noble was a gold coin from the time of Edward III. It was 80 pence, or a third of a pound.
"Sir priest," he said, "I keep to have no loss of my craft, for I would it were kept close. And as ye love me, keep it for if men knew all my subtlety, by God, they would have so great envy. To me, because of my philosophy, I should be dead. There were no other way." "God it forbid," quoth the priest, "what ye say. Yet had I lever spend all the good which that I have, and elsewhere I would, than that ye should fall in such mischief. For your good will, sir, have ye right would prefer," quoth the canon, "and farewell, grand mercy." He went his way, and never the priest him saw after that day. And when that this priest should make an essay at such time as he would of this receipt, farewell, it would not be. Lo, thus begypt and beguiled was he. Thus made he his introduction, to bring folk to their destruction.
The yeoman then gives a lengthy summation where he talks about how multiplication is addictive and how it ruins everyone who attempts it. I'm cutting that out because it doesn't contain any technical information that's of use to us. Although he does coin the aphorism, "late is better than never," or "better late than never," in this section.
Lo, thus saith Arnold of the New Town, as his rosary maketh mention. He saith right thus, without any lie: "There may no man Mercury mortify, but it be with his brother's knowledging." So
Chaucer starts name-dropping here. Once again, this is why people thought He was the business when it came to the higher secrets of the art. This is a reference to the Rosarium Philosophorum of Arnaldus Villanovanus, a French alchemist.
Lo, how that he, which first said this thing, of philosophers' father was Hermes, he saith, how that the dragon doubtless he dieth not.
Let's just stop him here for a second. I'd like to make clear that that's not the god Hermes, that's Hermes Trismegistus. At this stage he was thought to be a counsellor to the god Osiris and the inventor of writing, so basically he's Thoth, which gets him back to godhood. He is believed to have written a book about the philosopher's stone.
But if that he be slain with his brother, and this is for to sayn by the dragon Mercury, and none other, he understood, and brimstone by his brother, that out of Sol and Luna were he draw. And therefore, said he, take heed to my Sol, let no man busy him this art to seech, but if that he the intention and speech of philosophers understand can, and if he do, he is a lewd man. For this science and this conning, quoth he, is of the secret of secrets party.
So that's a bit of a mess of dialect. A saw is a saying, so when he says, listen to my saw, he's not talking about the tool. As mentioned in the last episode about this, pardi is a French saying that's been translated into English. It means by God. The Secret of Secrets is another alchemical book. Folkloristically, it's a letter from Aristotle to his student Alexander the Great. Oddly, it's the only one of the books listed here that I've actually read. It was some years ago, but I couldn't find anything immediately useful as podcast topic.
Also there was a disciple of Plato that on a time said his master to, as his book, Senior, will bear witness, and this was his demand in soothfastness. Tell me the name of thilke privy stone. And Plato answered unto him anon, take the stone that Titanos men name. Which is that? Quoth he. Magnesia is the same.
Let's pick through the dialect again. Thilke privy means the stone that is secret. The stone is also named Titanos, after the Titans. Magnesia was an area that interested Plato a lot. He suggested his perfect republic, book of the same name, would be founded there. The weird stone from there produces what we now call magnesium. It also produces manganese. These were both called magnesium in the period, one white and one black magnesium. They were believed to be the male and female variants of the same rock. The area also produces magnetite, by the way, so some of the stones in the area are magnets, and alchemists thought they were incredibly neat. It's not what the yeoman means here, by the way.
Said Plato, yea, sir, and is it thus? This is ignotum per ignatius. What is magnesia, good sir, I pray? It is a water that is made, I say, of the elements four, quoth Plato. Tell me the root, good sir, quoth he though, of that water, if that it be your will.
The Latin bit there, ignotium per ignatius, means to answer an unknown with another unknown. What's the stone? Magnesia. What's magnesia? A name I made up for a thing that I made. Plato says it's a water of the four elements. That's one of the ways of getting the quintessence, the elixir, the fifth element. Another way is to be a meat popsicle that drives a cab in the 23rd century, but Plato was not a fan of French cinema.
Nay, nay, quoth Plato, certain that I knew, the philosophers sworn were every one that they should not discover it to none, nor in no book it write in no manner. For unto God it is so lief and dear, that he will not that it discovered be. But where it liketh to his deity, man for to inspire, and eke for to defend. Whom that he liketh, lo, this is the end. Then thus conclude I, since that God of heaven will not that these philosophers niven, how that a man shall come unto his stone, I read as for the best to let it gon. For whoso maketh God his adversary, as for to work any thing in contrary of his will, certes never shall he thrive, though that he multiply term of his life. And there a point, for ended is my tale. God send every good man boot of his bale.
So God doesn't want humans to have the secret of the elixir. It's rather like the peaches of immortality or the tree of immortality in the Garden of Eden in that respect. It's there, but it's not for you, you rising ape. That last line, boot of his bale, means may everyone find a cure for his misfortunes. Thanks again to Joshua Young for the reading. Your saga may vary.